Hello, friends, and welcome to The Architecture Enthusiast. Gunnar Asplund was a pivotal figure in 20th century architecture, a master who uniquely navigated the profound shifts from neoclassicism to modernism with a deeply personal and humanistic vision. His work, while firmly rooted in the Scandinavian tradition, transcended regional styles to create a universal architectural language that was both formally rigorous and emotionally resonant. Asplund was not an ideologue. He was a poet of form, a master orchestrator of light, and a dedicated servant to the human experience. His architecture defies easy categorization, as it consistently synthesized opposing ideas: the monumental and the intimate, the historical and the contemporary, the rational and the intuitive. It is in this synthesis that his enduring genius lies. If one were to ask Gunnar Asplund, "What is architecture?" his answer would be a quiet but profound rebuke of rigid, dogmatic definitions. He would argue that architecture is not a style, a technology, or a set of abstract ideals, but fundamentally a humane art that creates an emotional experience for the user. For Asplund, a building's success was measured not by its adherence to a functionalist manifesto or a classical canon, but by its capacity to move the human spirit. He saw architecture as a narrative art, a carefully choreographed sequence of spaces, light, and materials that tells a story and guides a visitor on a journey of discovery. He believed that the architect's purpose was to create a specific atmosphere, a particular mood that would serve the building's function in the deepest sense. In essence, Asplund would define architecture as the art of creating a narrative human experience, a synthesis of light, material, and proportion that evokes a specific emotion and serves as a living dialogue with tradition and nature. The evolving poetics of form. Asplund's architectural journey began with a deep immersion in Nordic Classicism, a style that combined the principles of classical antiquity with a distinctively local sensibility. His early work was marked by a serene formality, a reliance on symmetrical plans, and the use of simple, often monumental, geometric volumes. He studied the timeless principles of proportion and scale, but he applied them with a restraint and an elegance that were uniquely his own. He was fascinated by the way light interacted with these clean, unadorned surfaces, creating a quiet dignity and a sense of calm. However, his classicism was never cold or academic. It was infused with a warmth and a humanism that stemmed from his use of natural materials and his attention to intimate details. He understood that even the grandest structure must feel welcoming and accessible to the individual. This classical foundation was not a phase he abandoned, but a wellspring from which his modernism grew. When the functionalist movement swept through Europe, Asplund engaged with its principles of efficiency, open plans, and new materials, but he did so on his own terms. He embraced the machine aesthetic and the clarity of modern forms, yet he never sacrificed the emotional richness and material warmth of his earlier work. He created a unique fusion, a modernism that was not severe or dogmatic, but humane and expressive. He proved that an open-plan building could still have a sense of solemnity, and that a structure made of steel and concrete could feel as warm and tactile as one made of timber. He saw modernism not as a rejection of history, but as a continuation of its enduring search for a truthful and beautiful architectural language: light, material, and the human experience. For Asplund, light was not merely a functional necessity, it was his primary architectural medium. He was a master of its manipulation, using it to sculpt space, create atmosphere, and guide the emotional journey of a building's occupants. He employed skylights, clerestory windows, and hidden light sources to create a sense of mystery or revelation. He could flood a large space with a gentle, diffused glow that created an ethereal atmosphere, or he could use a single, dramatic shaft of light to illuminate a specific object or a point of focus, creating a sense of sacred solemnity. This control over light was a key component of his narrative architecture. A visitor's experience was choreographed from darkness to light, from the contained to the expansive. His sensitivity to materials was equally profound. Asplund believed that a building's surfaces should engage the senses, creating a tactile and emotional connection with the user. He had an extraordinary ability to combine disparate materials in a way that felt both innovative and harmonious. He would juxtapose the cool, smooth surface of a polished stone floor with the rough, hand-cut texture of a timber wall. He used materials truthfully, allowing their natural grain, color, and texture to speak for themselves. He was not interested in facades that disguised a building's structure or composition. He wanted the honesty of the materials to be revealed. This created a sense of authenticity and human warmth that made his monumental works feel surprisingly intimate. He understood that a building's true character lay not in its grand gestures, but in the small, human-scale details of its craftsmanship. Architecture as a narrative journey. Asplund's work is perhaps best understood as a sequence of experiences, a carefully choreographed journey that unfolds over time and space. He meticulously planned the procession from the public realm to the private interior, using changes in scale, light, and material to guide the visitor and to shape their emotional response. The approach to one of his buildings might be defined by a grand classical axis, giving a sense of monumentality and order. Yet upon entering, the visitor might be led through a series of smaller, more intimate spaces, their view gradually revealed or framed by a carefully placed window. This use of procession created a sense of anticipation and discovery. He mastered the tension between the monumental and the intimate. The exterior of a building might be a severe, grand, and imposing volume, designed to communicate its civic importance. But the interior was a different world entirely, a space with human-scaled furniture, warm materials, and a sense of inviting comfort. This duality was central to his philosophy. He believed that a building should serve its public purpose with dignity and gravitas, but that it must also provide a sanctuary for the individual, a space for quiet contemplation and personal well-being. This ability to make monumental spaces feel humane and intimate is a hallmark of his genius and a key reason for his enduring appeal. A lasting legacy. Gunnar Asplund's influence on today's architecture is pervasive, particularly among designers who seek to create a more humane and expressive modernism. He provided a compelling alternative to the rigid functionalist dogma of his contemporaries, showing that a building could be both modern and deeply rooted in tradition, both rational and emotionally powerful. His legacy is found in the work of architects who prioritize the expressive power of light, the tactile quality of materials, and the art of crafting a spatial narrative. He showed that a building's true success lies in its ability to move people, not just to house them. He proved that architecture is not a formula to be followed, but a conversation to be had, with history, with nature, and with the human spirit.